Hello, my name is Vander Heiden and I have leukemia.
I'm Veronica Vander Heiden, I'm his wife, and I'm looking after him.
I'm Amy Vander Heiden, and I'm his daughter.
I had an intense pain in my lower abdomen that turned out to be a kidney stone. The blood work drawn during that kidney stone showed that I had very low platelets in me and determined that I had leukemia.
Leukemia is a cancer that attacks the bone marrow and other blood-forming organs, which in turn produce increased numbers of abnormal blood cells known as leukocytes. These leukocytes suppress the production of normal blood cells, leading to anemia and other drastic symptoms.
It was a bolt out of the blue because I was feeling fine. Just shows that this can happen to anybody. The shock of it being in existence at all, and then the shock of being transported to a completely different city and undergoing immediate treatment, because the type of leukemia I have is AML, which is particularly aggressive, so they had to...
It stands for acute myeloid leukemia.
Acute myeloid leukemia, or AML, is a type of cancer in which bone marrow makes abnormal myeloblasts and platelets.
I have to be there for him. I don't... Him going to Vancouver without me was not an option. Like, basically my life was paused, and I had to go on leave without pay. I'm having to apply for medical EI for him and EI and family caregiver EI for myself.
Day to day. I mean, for the past 19 and a half years of my life, I've woken up and he's been down the hall. I got to see him every morning. I got to see him when I came home. Just being in the same room watching TV. I think this past week was a blessing where both my parents got to come home, even for such a short time, and I got to cook in the kitchen with my dad, which I loved to do constantly growing up. I got to do that again for the first time in 4 months. I miss him.
That first week or two, I was scared to cry in front of him because, I thought, I gotta be strong for him. I can't let him see me cry, because I was scared, really scared. And when I cried, though, he's just been such a rock. He just holds my hand, and I hold his, and we tell each other we're going to get through this. We're a team.
I had 2 rounds of chemotherapy in the hospital. After the first chemotherapy, we were given the news that only 75% of the blasts, the bad cells, had been removed, and they immediately started another round of chemotherapy after that. So that was much more successful. It brought it down to 2%, so I'm technically in remission, but I have a variety of AML, which increases the chance of the leukemia coming back. Next step after that was to undergo 1 or 2 rounds of inpatient or outpatient chemotherapy.
Each chemo cycle takes about an entire month, so it was like anywhere from 5 to 7 days straight of chemotherapy, and then followed by 3 weeks of his body reacting to that chemotherapy and recovering. And then his blood counts coming back up again and recovering to a point where they then would do a biopsy and see how well did the chemotherapy work. So they said you're going to receive a couple of rounds as an outpatient of chemotherapy while we look for a donor match for a stem cell transplant. Paul was very lucky in that his sister Janet is a match, and she was willing to donate. And so he didn't have to undergo that second round in outpatient care. Next week, he's going back into hospital, and they're going to be giving him a 4th round of chemotherapy, the most intensive one yet.
October 11th, we have the chemo starting. That's going to be 5 days of the blasts and medicine to suppress my immune system so that rejection is less likely. After that, on the 18th, we'll transplant. Which will be, not that momentous because it will just be the blood product being dripped in the way we've had platelets or hemoglobin.
Yeah.
So
They'll come in and they'll hang a bag. They treat it like a launch date. We're at T-minus 14 days. So October 18th is T0, and after that transplant, he'll probably, if everything goes well, he'll be in hospital perhaps a month. And then they start counting forward from that transplant 100 days. So they'll hopefully discharge him after 1 month, but then they continue to monitor him very closely as an outpatient until those 100 days following his transplant are up. They'll be taking blood tests every day and monitoring and doing biopsies, and at the end of that 100 days,
a barrage of tests.
They'll be doing a whole bunch of tests, all of the same tests that he went through 3 days ago. Pulmonary function, bone density, biopsies, lumbar puncture, all of it.
Yeah. The lumbar puncture.
So 100 days you have to stay in Vancouver.
Yeah.
That is the plan.
And then he'll do all these tests, and however long those tests take to wrap up. To basically, that'll be we've done the before, now we're going to do the after. They compare them, and then the hope is that he can go home. And by our calculations, that's about the end of February. So it's Christmas in Vancouver.
Paul and his family are asking for your help. 7 months of lodging in Vancouver is an expense that they cannot bear. Your help will give them the time and support that they need to recover. More information can be found at our website, helppaulfight.com. Our GoFundMe is at gofundme.com/helppaulfight. From Paul and his family, thank you for any support that you can give.